All right, guys, we're going to talk about agent adoption and security. The panelists are going to introduce themselves here in a second, but we got a star-studded cast, so enjoy here. Things have changed a lot in the last 6 months. The last panel was talking about developments and models such that we can pretty much solve coding, software engineers becoming obsolete. I don't think the panel agrees with that, which we're going to get into as well. But there's certainly been a sea change in security. The status quo as we know it's being challenged, and so we're going to dive into that with a little reality check and have some fun. So before we do that, panelists, would love you guys to introduce yourself. We're going to start with Ankur.
How about now?
Okay, there we
perfect.
go.
Hello, everybody. Ankur Shah, co-founder and CEO of Stryker, AI security startups in Sunnyvale. Started a couple years ago, been in cybersecurity for the last 20 years, did cloud security at Palo Alto Networks before. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Snehal Tani, co-founder, CEO at Horizon 3. My background, I was a CIO in financial services and the CTO at Splunk, and then left industry to serve in U.S. Special Operations for a few years, running both offensive and defensive cyber, and been at this, at least the startup world, for about 6 years now.
And it's always bad to go after Snehal. But my name is Dusan. I run the innovation outpost for larger Swiss telco, IT service provider, and managed security service provider. My background is also in cyber, CISO for 15 years, and since 4 years here, helping our business units be on the forefront in innovation and help Swisscom Ventures invest also.
And I'm Ken Elephant. I'm a managing partner at Sorensen Capital. We have both an early stage fund and a growth fund. And I've been investing in security for about 27 years. I started off at Battery Ventures and then at Lightspeed, and then started up the early stage fund at Sorensen Capital back in 2017.
Excellent. All right, let's start with what's actually going on at the enterprise. We live in the Bay Area. There's AI psychosis taking over all of us. I think we're all experimenting. Ankur, I'm going to start with you. You're securing AI usage at some of the largest enterprises in the world. What's the reality on the ground?
Yeah, look, I've been fortunate to have been part of multiple transformation from cloud to mobile to internet. So I'll tell you the good news part, right? I've talked to now over 600 customers, healthcare, financial services, etc. It feels a little bit out the early days of cloud, but 10x more accelerated. Yet to talk to any customer who's either not building an agent, not using cloud code in some capacity. So there's a tale of two cities. People are buying first, investing first before thinking about returns, right? Token maxing, left, right, and center. So there's a good part of this. AI spread across all industry vertical. Again, I can say tech companies, healthcare is ahead of financial services, etc. Oil and gas companies, they're finding hundreds of use cases. But to date, less than 10% of the customers are at scale deployment right now. So that's the state of the union. Everybody's got kind of FOMO. They want to all try, but nothing at scale in production just yet.
Yeah, I can relate to that. We're a St. Louis-based bank, and we're token maxing, which I never thought we'd see here. Dusan, I'm going to go to you. Bring in the European perspective. I feel like the Swiss have always been a little more cautious. What are you seeing?
Well, the trust and security, privacy play a big role right now, and that's for sure slowing down the adoption in scale. But I would say that we're experimenting more than ever. So people have that FOMO and trying to, not miss the wave. Yeah. It feels like because it's so much faster than cloud, there is no time to kind of wait, see what happens, and then jump on it. So I see in a part security and business, I feel a lot of friction because there is a real kind of pressure to adopt the agents, and security is we are a critical infrastructure provider, regulated company, and it's not as easy to say, okay, go, and then we'll figure it out later, as is the case a lot of times, especially here in the Valley, when you look at the startups, they're adopting much, much faster. So that's definitely slower, but I think one thing that I'm seeing is I feel a real pressure to, as a CISO or a security professional, to enable something that I don't feel comfortable today enabling. So that's a little bit different to cloud.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get any points for slowing the business down right now. And I think part of that is the headlines. You know, we had Mythos drop, 3 months, 2 months, I'm not sure. And you hate FUD in security, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I feel like if you've ever sold security products, not that I have, but anytime you're peddling a FUD agenda, it just kind of backfires. At the same time, the adversaries feel like they have the advantage. And, you know, Ken, I'd love to get your perspective with the CISOs that you're talking to. Do you feel like it's as bad as we're hearing? Or are you thinking the good guys have a chance here?
I would say that I am terrified. So if there's one takeaway from this panel, there really are major security issues. And the reason is exactly what you said, Danny. The attackers are always the first to adopt technologies. It is completely, from a technical point of view, available on the defender side. But unfortunately, we just don't move fast enough on the defense side. And I'm less worried about financial institutions, because I think that you are sophisticated. I am much, much more worried about the unsophisticated verticals. Think small, mid-sized businesses, think critical infrastructure that barely is on cloud today. Those are the ones that are going to get popped first. Yeah. So yes, I'm terrified. The good news is I actually do think that there's ways to protect ourselves. Like not all the vulnerabilities that are coming out of Mythos are exploitable. Yep. Not all of them are relevant to each enterprise. So it's more about how do you prioritize and follow up on the correct vulnerabilities. Yep.
I think this is where it's going to get interesting. What do you have to say about that?
So a couple of parts. One, as I mentioned, we pioneered this concept of AI hackers. So the first to do it at scale. Our AI hacker hacked a bank in 77 seconds. That bank had every Gucci tool you could buy, and it still got popped in 77 seconds. No prior knowledge, no humans in the loop, fully autonomous. If your defenses can't stop me in 76 seconds, it's game over. Yep. Because at second 77, I'm locking you out of your machines, locking you out of the building, and ripping through your data, your infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So think of 76 seconds. That's you can very quickly burn 76 seconds doom scrolling on X, grabbing a coffee, chatting with friends, going to the restroom. It doesn't take a lot of time. And the problem we have today is every defensive cyber product was designed with humans in the loop or humans on the loop, none of which is going to be able to operate at that speed. Mm-hmm. And so the future of cyber warfare is AI fighting AI with humans by exception. And for the first time, we're in a position where every single incumbent product is up for displacement by somebody that can come in and make it humans by exception. However, a little bit longer answer, there's a fundamental issue with cyber and fraud and other use cases where there was very limited public training data by the frontier models. And so last I checked, JP Morgan didn't publish their network configs online anywhere, which made it difficult for Anthropic to scrape that data as part of their models. And so the most valuable training data for cyber, both offensive and defensive, lies behind the firewall. As a result of having constrained training data, it's super easy to trick these models, both offensive and defensive use cases, into chasing dead ends, burning tokens, blowing out context windows, inducing drift, and so on. And so I think that in cyber, these models are demoing really well. Yeah. But for them to actually come in contact with the enemy, I just don't see these defensive AI models today or some of the offensive AI hacker models being able to withstand contact with the adversary.
Yeah. Ankur, I'm going to come back to you just to get the customer antidotes. I feel like deception's been talked about for 7, 8, 10 years, and it's so far down the list. Like, you take over as a CISO and you've got 10 priorities that you got to hit before you start checking off the nice to haves. Is deception common with the customers you're working with?
No. Right now in cybersecurity, there's only one category that matters. Just like AI has sucked all the oxygen out of the room, like there's no other technology thing that matters outside of AI. In cyber, intersection of AI and cyber is the only thing that matters. AppSec, deception, everything else is irrelevant right now, which is using AI for doing security or securing AI itself. Yep. So that's what we hear. It's in the top 3 list. I would say supply chain attacks have been like fairly recent phenomenon. So a lot of CISOs I talk to, they do say supply chain is back on. Now AI will exacerbate that problem. So I think that's definitely there. And I think like, look, I kind of agree with Snehal that you can only fight AI with AI. So like, what's the answer? The bank or hospital. So we do a lot of work with Frontier Labs where we're basically taking down hospitals, nuclear power plant to create like Chernobyl-like scenarios, right? And that happens. I think defenses have to be built using AI. And right now it's like such an early days. If somebody, bad actor has access to Mythos, like do enterprises, do people have access to similar model, fine tune on lots and lots of data set? Because again, to Snail's point, there's not enough data sets available in public domain to actually train model to have the defenses in milliseconds or less than 77 seconds to defend against it. So look, we're asking the right questions. I'm not sure if we have all the answers as an industry, but we are here on this stage and our mission is to make sure that good guys win.
The way that I think about deception is it is one part of the security stack. In a way that I like to think about this is imagine that there's a bunch of fish going down a river. There's a bunch of nets that you can put up. The first net might be Endpoint, that's CrowdStrike. The second net might be Palo Alto, that's network. And then there's more and more nets. The problem with deception is that it's the net that's at the end of the river. And yes, there's some important little fish that are getting through, and those little fish may be piranhas, but there's too few issues that you see on deception. And so enterprises aren't willing to pay that much money for it. Therefore, there's not as much innovation in that space. Yeah.
Well, that being said, I just talked to a few startups in that space, and some of them are saying like, hey, we wait until the people get in to put the traps. They're trying to do something up front, right? So kind of mess with the models, misguide them and stuff like this. So some of these things are coming up slowly. Let's see where it goes. I've been on a few threads where CISOs are discussing that, and that doesn't seem like it needs to become real first until people jump on it.
I think it's a feature, not a space. That's my
probably
point.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to stay with you, Dushan, for a second. So, I mean, what's it like turning an organization strategically? We talk about people, process, technology in the security orgs. Right now, the people in security haven't been trained up on AI. Like, if you're running your org today, how quickly can you shift your people's mindset, get them to embrace agentic engineering? What's that look like?
Well, first thing is that the knowledge gap is real. Like the understanding the models, and I mean, I was listening to some panels before here. I spent fairly a lot of time on it as non-security specialist, and still it's way more complex than something we've seen before, and people and teams are struggling. So education is definitely one very important one. I see teams changing skill, getting more engineers into team, like a little bit less of typical security folks that do governance and stuff, but more like engineering. So we're experimenting and writing, first year analyst, automation and stuff like that, which I think it's a good idea to, before you start buying products, to know what you need to buy, to kind of be hands-on, because that it's like a gap. If you're buying AppSec tool, you know what's AppSec, look at which criteria. If you're buying something AI related, you still not sure about the criteria, what to look at. So people are hands-on, kind of building a little bit before, maybe not for not buying, but to understand what they should be buying in the future when they need to scale that with a real product. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like we have the big company perspective here, but you work with startups all day. You guys are building at the speed of light. What's it look like inside your organizations or the startups you're working with? How has the software development lifecycle changed? How are you thinking about ROI of AI for your teams? Would love to hear from any of you.
Yeah, look, it's a great question. So our perspective, again, the startup journey, you have to like kind of think about fundamentally changing how you build products like AI DLC, as well as AI GTM or GTM engineering, right? On the development side, the usual suspects, of course, apply. I would say give or take 70, 80% of the code is generated by AI. Initially, the thought was like, why not everything? We don't need that many engineers. As it turns out, the last mile, the last 20% matter more than the first 80%. And that's why you need trained Marines to know how to operate the machine gun or whatever, right? So we have like senior architects, like still, the thing that AI will not be able to replace is taste, human taste. To the extent that the humans are buying the product, you need the taste, people who understand what great looks like. So we need that. On the go-to-market, so that's on the development side, coding, AI reviewing code, etc., AI deploying the code, par for the course. On the go-to-market, the biggest impact we're seeing so far is the top of the funnel. Our ability to prospect has gotten significantly better. A lot of the CRM tools are garbage, so we're trying to slowly but surely kind of replace it with our own AI agents on the prospecting side. Early days, but the biggest impact on the middle of the funnel right now. So I have customers regularly send big banks send me RFPs, tens of thousands of documents, multiple tabs. Our RFP responses are half an hour with human in the loop just to check if everything is good. Our code repo, our HubSpot, our GTM context is fed to Claude Code. Every rep has access to Claude Code and Cowork. They're allowed to connect with whatever system, build proposals that are customized to a client. Rather than talking about what you do, our proposals are how we solve their problems, so they're able to move it at speed. It resonates much better. So I think that's what we're doing, not calculating ROI because investment before the return. So we're still in the investment phase right now. But look, I've been in technology for the last 25 years, and this is not like Silicon Valley hype X, next thing you read. I've never seen anything like this. We're talking 1,000% improvements in productivity. It's staggering. What used to take days now takes minutes, which is incredible. Last thing I'll say is that so far, in my own view, thing that requires a multi-step human reasoning process, I review an RFP, I'm going to do, agents are not quite there yet. Yeah. That requires human. So if you have a single shot, single tasks, but even they are lengthy, agents are really good at that. Multi-step, I think that's the next frontier. We need to get better at that. Yeah.
Snehal, are you giving your BDRs Claude Code?
So it's actually really funny. We just blew out the 150 seat limit in Claude, so we now have to go to usage based, and we're all quite nervous. We don't know what right looks like in the amount of usage. Our East Coast developers get access to Claude. By the time the West Coast developers come online, they've blown through the limits, and they've got to flip to cursor and the next thing and the next thing. So the amount of financial engineering in how you use each of these models is pretty hilarious. It's at the moment. So I think we're all still trying to understand what right looks like. And this is with my CEO hat on. So I've got 450 employees now, doubling up to 900 by the end of the year. There's a pretty legit,
Why do you need to double to 900 if AI exists?
That's the thing. I don't believe you can replace humans with AI.
Which part?
Across the board. So I hire senior engineers, and I give them Claude, which gives them unlimited interns. And so those senior engineers are able to, as I said, multi-step complicated systems. They're able to look at code. They use Claude to author code, but there's still a tremendous amount of work into making sure that stuff gets integrated into more complicated systems. On the content marketing side, I actually see content marketeers, they've become editors versus content creators. But it takes a tremendous amount of skill to be a great editor. So what's happening is and then finally, a lot of that hiring is sales reps. So in cybersecurity, it's you're not selling cyber deals one steak dinner at a time, nor is it a product-led growth sale. Rarely are iconic cyber companies built out of PLG. It's a channel-led motion. And there's very little you can do beyond, you can use agents to augment how you do training, enablement, how you do qualification, and how you accelerate prospecting. But there's still a human aspect to the sale in cybersecurity that you can't overcome. So of the additional 400 people we're hiring, I think 2/3 are sales reps globally. Sales engineers, channel reps, field marketers, those kinds of folks. Mm-hmm. And I think about 1/3 of them are engineers, primarily senior engineers, with Claude license that gives them unlimited interns.
Yeah. Maybe just a small addition. You mentioned the senior giving in unlimited amount of juniors. What we had a case junior seeing a 2 a.m. thing and having an AI, did you think about this, that? That was super helpful because he didn't need to wake up senior and get there. So there is also that direction happens also quite a bit. And there are some products out there that are actually focusing on building that senior knowledge into the their data so they can kind of help juniors actually be better. So that's also an interesting direction.
Yeah, my view is AI is great where you want to have production 90% there, or in spaces where if you're wrong, it's okay. And unfortunately, that's why AI in security protection is actually working today, because look at what we've been doing in the past for the last 20 years. We've had an immense amount of false positive. We've had an immense amount of wasted time following up on things that we don't need to. So AI is great because at least it's better than what we used to do. It's not perfect yet, but there's no way that I would let AI be the driving force for an operation on me. If there was 1,000 different ways to repair my heart, I would really want somebody that's done that themselves and then can assimilate what are the best 3 ways to do this and make that judgment.
I'll build on that. There's actually 2 interesting areas where we've seen the most productivity boost. The first is completely transforming the workflows between product managers, designers, and prototyping. And they've just quickly iterated through to get to a pretty good spec in design. It still requires a human plus agents to get that right enough to be shipped at a high quality and high stability. But that entire design flow process has completely changed. We're now going to drop all our Figma license probably as a result of it. So I'd probably short that stock, not giving investment advice, and so on. And the other area is actually interesting. Our sales engineer, if we're waiting on a feature and we just haven't gotten to it yet, our sales engineers are actually able to use the MCP server we've wrapped around our product and get to that same kind of design, iteration, prototype phase to help get customer requirements from the field, so more field-driven input. And we're able to use that to accelerate the process of what Right's going to look like. So what I've seen is actually a lot less rework in shipping something that didn't quite hit the mark because of how much faster we're able to iterate between customer input, design, and product management.
Yeah. Before we go off the AI ROI, you're in board meetings all the time. Are you getting shocked with token expenses and they're like, hey, sorry, we burned an extra $1 million this quarter, it came out of nowhere? Or do you feel like it's pretty disciplined and folks are knowing what's coming?
Our companies are typically quite small. We invest pre-revenue.
Yeah.
So they are experimenting with it,
Yep.
and they're using it, and they're prioritizing where they use it next. So kind of like what Ankur was saying, it's super useful in coding. It's definitely super useful in sales. Now they're moving over to marketing.
Got it.
But I have not seen shocks in terms of cost yet.
Okay.
I have seen shocks in terms of when they're implementing AI into their product and they don't do it in the right way. I think that product architecture is even more important today than it ever was.
Actually, I'll jump in on that. I remember a couple of years ago, I was pitching, I forgot what firm it was, and I was bragging about our gross margins at Horizon 3, which is high 80%. And they're like, margins don't matter. I don't care about that. Tell me about growth. I'm like, no, I think margins will matter. And then it actually got thrown out the door completely the last couple of years where there are companies selling a candy bar for $1 that actually cost them $1.50 to make due to token expense. So actually gross margins negative, which is insane. So I think that there's a huge disconnect between free cash flow margins, Rule of 40, and gross margins profiles that Wall Street expects and what investors are willing to tolerate and subsidize at the moment. But at some point, you've got to cross that chasm or you have no path to, if you want to IPO, you have no path to IPO if you don't get that under control. Moreover, so there's like that problem in there, which is at some point you've got to get to a reasonable gross margins profile. And if you are a wrapper and depend on the latest models, those model token prices are not going to go down as quickly as we once thought, especially as these companies go public and they've got their own financial requirements. And so I think there's a really big reckoning to happen on companies that were structurally broken in their gross margins profile. On the flip side, I think 18 months from now, the bigger players, for us in cyber, our gross margins are higher than the top 10 cyber companies that are publicly traded. And so my guess is that in 18 months, those public companies will be under so much pressure to improve free cash flow margins because of token costs and other things that they did, that anyone that's margin accretive is going to be extremely attractive to them at scale. So I do think that there's going to be a gross margins reckoning in that this assumption that token prices were only going to go down is a really broken assumption. What we're seeing, though, is the smarter the harness, the dumber the model. And the dumber the model, the cheaper the model. And so harness engineering and the training data layer continue to be the most durable moats that give you structural advantage.
And I think, sorry to add there, and I think that's one of the hardest skills right now to find, how to build that. To build that harness to be cost effective and get good outputs. That architectural thought is, yeah, it's rare. Yeah.
Well, hey, we're almost out of time here. We got a bunch of builders in the room, and since we're all security-minded individuals, I'm curious, what advice do you have for builders baking security into their products?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would think about this as a kind of quadrangle around your core agentic footprint. First is embrace AI. You can't. A lot of the systems I talk to come from traditional backgrounds. So like, okay, we're going to be Mr. No. No, you got to embrace the technology first. So train the people. The only way to do it is just like enable as much AI as possible. Second thing is visibility, which is understand what agentic footprint is in your environment. That's something I'd recommend to CISOs all the time across the board. The third thing is offensive testing. That's what I'm wearing on my shirt. You got to do continuous red teaming. You have to act as an adversary before the adversaries do. And the last is defense. If you can only do one thing, build defenses, which is the guardrails. It's just like we've built this Autobahn. Bunch of cars are going to move at like 200 miles an hour. You just want to have paved path and guardrails so that the cars don't go off the freeway. That's
4
it.
points of the quadrangle. Well done. Anybody else?
Building security into your products, I think, is absolutely critical. And what I'm seeing from startups today is it's not security by design, but they definitely need to understand what is in their software. So security supply chain is real. IBM Red Hat just got popped yesterday, and it's a super important thing because it's not just one customer, it is every customer. So you need to understand what is in your software, what open source, what's the provenance of it, and so on. That is absolutely critical, and that's completely solvable today, completely.
All right, lightning round to bring us home. One word-ish. One word's not going to do it. This category is not going to exist in security in 5 years. And they didn't get prepared for this.
Yeah. Application security, if you just look at AppSec.
First year analyst job.
I'll double down on SAST tools.
SOC tools.
All SOC tools
That's
are
right.
going to be gone?
That's right.
Really?
That's gonna
And
be
you think it's
interesting.
going to be completely autonomous?
I think the ability for big models to analyze and reduce MTTD and MTTR is going to be way, way higher. I actually think that there is a bull and bear case, by the way, just while we are on the topic.
Yeah.
The bear case is that all humans and all enterprises are a bunch of data monkeys for the big model providers. So ultimately, the value keeps decreasing. All the endpoint telemetry is just data pipe for the big models to suck in.
You said 5 years?
5 years.
So you think that
Oh, there's
you're
no-
going to allow your systems to autonomously fix an issue on your CEO's computer in 5 years?
Frontier models would. Not the pure play cybersecurity. It should be easy to see that 5 years from now, the number one public company is not traded already in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's a really good point.
I love it. A great panel ends with a little argument. Everybody give it up for the panelists here. Thank you so much.